Podcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for FARO's webinar with Automotive Manufacturing Solutions. My name is Gareth Price. I'm Assistant Editor of Automotive Manufacturing Solutions magazine. Today, I'm joined by John Earnshaw, Factory Metrology Product Manager at FARO. In this webinar, John will discuss inspection solutions and how to create mobile visualization and comparison to real-world conditions, as well as early-stage error detection and augmented reality functionality. Before we begin, I'd like to invite all of you to send questions for John to pick up in the Q&A session that follows the presentation. Just type the questions into the box in the lower right-hand side of your screen. Also, if you experience any technical issues during this session, please let us know using the Q&A box and our team will try to fix it. We hope you'll find this webinar stimulating and informative. And with that, I'll now hand over to John for the presentation.
Good morning or good afternoon, depending on your location in the world. I'd like to thank you for joining us today. And Gareth, thank you for the introduction. I'd also like to introduce one of my colleagues. Oliver Fry is a solutions engineer for FARO. He's based out of Germany, and he's also a subject matter expert for the Visual Inspect product suite. And at certain times, we'll be inviting him to come in as well. And also for the Q&A session, I would like to default to his expertise. So I wanted to introduce him as well. As Gareth had mentioned, I'm a product manager for FARO in the Factory Metrology business unit. FARO is a global company, and basically we like to say that we're the world's most trusted source for 3D measurement and imaging solutions for factory metrology, as well as product design, construction, BIM, SIM, public safety, forensics, and 3D solutions and applications. And we like to think of ourselves not as a product supplier, but truly as a solutions provider. With that, I'd like to pause for a minute. I'd like to show a short video. Most people are visual, and I think it will give you a very good overview of the capabilities and the look and feel of Visual Inspect and the product suite. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and see if we can queue up the video. And we may or may not be able to do that, depending on operator error here. So it looks like we are successful. Did you ever think about designing your processes to make those procedures in order to control the chaos while searching for precious time? We know on the dawn of the fourth industrial revolution, it will clearly explode between product development, production, logistics, and customers. Today, complex CA and data ranking of digital information. Up to now, this has been used only on PCs because of the immense data volume. Therefore, the data was not available to all company areas. Powerful tablet PCs, in combination with intelligent apps, allow the mobile use of large amounts of industrial data. With only one click, it is possible to create wire interfaces in compressed data format containing all geometrical and process information. Quick and easy, the data will be transferred to the mobile device, where it can be used. Of visual inspect and the level of mobility of complex processes. Visual inspect is designed to close the gap between real and virtual world. Augmented reality is the extension of pictures with virtual objects by overlay. Visual inspect visualizes the important content where you live while working with the actual product. From giant technologies and tolerances to annotations, everything is possible. Connection of reality and the virtual model is realized by using mountable markers. Once registered, knows no boundaries. High graphics performance combined with the integration of camera system allows Facilitates the quality correction processes and replicates how describe our text and image annotations directly on the model. Based on this check, protocols are generated and distributed in the company or transferred straight to the person in charge. Even company internal forms can be used and digital. With visual inspect, manage complex cross-functional processes quickly and coordinate work with distributed teams to ensure consistent and efficient realization of the best possible product. Possible applications for reducing emission, incoming inspection, assembly of components, documentation of construction progress, or quality assurance. Visual inspect, take it to your desk and saves you time. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and start our formal webinar. Again, I think visuals are very important, and I thought that was a great overview. Actually, Oliver, who is my colleague, is joining us. He actually was the individual in the video, so his 15 minutes of fame, I would say. Our agenda for today, about FARO, we'll talk a little bit, just a very quick overview of FARO and basically our FARO solutions portfolio. As I had mentioned earlier, FARO is not a product supplier. We are truly a solutions provider. We try to work with potential customers and our existing customers to take a look at all of our broad breadth of our portfolio and to craft up the proper solution to meet the challenges and issues they have. We certainly want to talk about Visual Inspect and specifically how it can improve and or help assist your overall manufacturing capability, and specific to automotive. We'll talk about various industries and applications because it does scale across multiple markets and product domains or application domains. We'll show specific examples of Visual Inspect. We'll talk about the ROI, the commercial benefits. We'll walk through the key features of both Visual Inspect. Visual Inspect in and of itself is an extremely powerful mobile CAD viewer and documentation system. It's also an enhanced augmented reality AR solution. We'll talk about specifically how it works and the inner workings. We don't want to get too technical. We certainly would love to have you engage us further if you'd like to have an on-site demonstration or further discussions. And we'll recap the value proposition. And even more so, we'd like to open it up as a Q&A, question and answer session for the team, for the attendees. So we discussed what is FARO. FARO is a global company. We're the most trusted source for 3D measurement imaging solutions for factory metrology. That's my business unit. Also product design, construction, BIM sim, public safety forensics, and 3D solutions and service applications. And we truly are a global company. Our headquarters, global headquarters, is based in the US out of Lake Mary, Florida. And we also have our EMEA headquarters is based out of Stuttgart, Germany. And our Asia Pacific headquarters is based out of Singapore. And we also have subsidiary or sales offices located globally. And you can see the different locations at the bottom of the screen. Just a quick overview. So we basically are a solutions provider, and our portfolio includes 3D metrology as well as and measurement, as well as imaging and manufacturing support, hardware and software. All of our customers have both distinct and individual needs, and yet they also have very scalable and universal needs, right? And so again, we consider ourselves a solution provider across that. Let's talk about FARO Visual Inspect. So we utilize an iPad, and that's our facilitator, if you will, and that's our mobile solution. And basically what we do is we use that to streamline your manufacturing processes. It gives you the ability to basically take very complex and heavy CAD data, CAD data, and take that from your tooling engineering department and actually walk that down to the manufacturing production shop floor. and have the ability to not only view something and take pictures and do annotation and notes, but also to do some level of in-process inspection. And you can also share that across your manufacturing, either facility, your plant, and/or your organization. Very, very powerful tool. So in and of itself, it's an extremely powerful mobile CAD viewer and documentation system. And then when we add the enhanced augmented reality capability, it can truly become an in-process inspection capability or solution. Let's talk about our various industries and applications. We actually grew specifically out of the automotive, and that's our primary market. The automotive manufacturers, especially in Germany, were extremely forward-thinking and prescient, and we're looking for this type of solution and worked with what is now the Visual Inspect team. This actually came about as an acquisition last year from FARO. And so if you look here, we show not only the industries and market domains, but we also show the specific applications. And I would actually say that this chart does not show assembly, control, and guidelines for aerospace, heavy equipment, and shipbuilding, because they deal with extremely, extremely large formats relative to their manufacturing parts or assemblies. However, in their sub-assemblies and the smaller parts, it is also valid. So truly, you could see that not only is it incoming inspection, both either pushed out to your suppliers and/or in your facility. Also, CAD to part, or basically the as-built to the CAD model comparison, component alignment and assembly support, assembly control and guidelines, and then obviously documentation, as we said, both in your plant and across your organization. So I would really say that we have X's across all of these applications in each of these market segments. Let's talk specifically about each of the applications. So for manufacturing support, basically we have this very mobile and very powerful CAD viewer, and we can use it also to report back what we see, because we can take pictures, we can do annotations and notes and text. We also have the ability to do that not only real time, right, but we can also do overlay and other text and annotations after the fact. So we can take this back as process or manufacturing engineers. We can go back to our workspace, our office. We can do this at home. We can do it offline. We can go to a customer site and take these pictures and these notes, but we can also annotate and do overlays and other things after the fact. Incoming goods inspection. So Total Quality says that we push our quality out to our suppliers, our vendors. However, we all live in the real world, and we know very distinctly that things still come in and they're missing holes, or the holes are misdrilled or mislocated, and/or there are sub-assemblies that aren't included, or they're symmetrical parts that happen to be turned the wrong way. And so there's all kinds of issues that we have relative to that parts inspection. And I'll defer to Oliver, but I would say even probably about 60% of our applications to date have actually been for incoming type of process inspection, or I'm sorry, incoming type of inspection for parts coming in from suppliers. We talked about as-built to the model comparison, so basically CAD, CAD to part or actual build comparison. Very important. What's the offset? What's the delta? What's the difference? We talked about alignment and assembly capabilities, so we actually help in the manufacturing process. We talked about assembly control and guidelines, where we actually can see where components need to be in a space. Let's say that you're in a shipping environment, and you've got multiple trades coming into the same space. They may not always come in the same actual sequence. They might actually come in at different times, and perhaps the conduit folks who are also infringing on the space for the electrical folks, they might be doing something that's going to cause a lot of pain for the next trade that comes in. So this is a great way for visualization, exactly where items are supposed to be outlined or laid out, and a way to even, I would say, mitigate the use of templates and other types of blueprints. And we talked about obviously 3D QA documentation. So we take the as-built and we actually compare that to the CAD model, and we can make notes and annotations and take pictures, and this is all done live, or it can be done offline. Very powerful tool. let's talk about the value proposition, because we can have the best tool, right? But we always have to basically complete a business case or some type of justification, and present that to our managers and to our management relative to the financials. So this allows and pushes out the empowerment for employees, basically operators, to basically make decisions on the floor that will actually affect further downstream quality, manufacturing, both. And so they're able to make the right decisions all of the time. It helps you to analyze and improve processes. Basically, it also provides a collaborative manufacturing environment where you can actually take your issues, and you can directly take that and communicate that to other processes, other trades, other folks in the manufacturing process. So let's talk about incoming inspection, because that seems to be one of the most dominant areas that we found that customers are utilizing this. And what's interesting is we have this very powerful mobile CAD viewer and documentation system, and a really, for lack of a better way to say it, very cool augmented reality technology and capability. And yet what's going to happen is what we envision as the needs and the ability and the capabilities that this can fulfill. There's going to be some really smart folks in whether automotive or rail or shipbuilding. They're going to say, you know, I could probably use this for this. And that's where we learn the most, right? We have a lot of smart people at FARO, but it's really when we push out to the field and we start working with potential customers and our existing customers that we learn a lot. We learn, you know, really how they're using this and how they can push the limits to use this. So I would truly ask you, if you have some areas that you think this can fulfill, reach out to us, reach out to your FARO folks, and have them come in and just do an evaluation and sit with you and understand your needs and challenges. Because I think that there's a lot of different areas that the Visual Inspect can actually fulfill relative to minimizing, mitigating some of the pain and the challenges that we face in manufacturing. So let's talk about the incoming inspection. So basically, tooling is produced by an external vendor or supplier, and basically we have the ability to check that using the Visual Inspect. We can check it at their location, or we can check it incoming, or both. And this will basically compress the issues. Sometimes it's not just an overt event that we face where we have to scrap something, but it's a rework situation. So if somebody gets something in and they have to, put this up, and let's say you're using a shadow board and you're actually, put 40 weldments on an assembly, and all those items are there, all the operator, he or she knows is that, okay, I cleared my shadow box. I have everything in the kit that's put up that needs to be put up. So I've done my job. However, what if there's something that's actually not had a hole drilled properly, or a hole is missing? That's actually going to cause a lot of pain and suffering when you get further downstream. And this is one of the key areas that we can mitigate or reduce that level of pain or issue. So the benefits would be obviously time savings, right? Rate savings, and increased rate throughput, and obviously any type of scrap or rework. And here's a specific example. So on the top left, you can see where an item is actually milled to less than what it should be. And you can see on the bottom left, you see a missing center hole. And then you see the documentation of the problems via a visual, a picture taken with the iPad, and then basically annotation or text that's put on there. And you can see the green overlay, which is the CAD overlay, and that's the augmented reality feature. Oliver, if you're available and you'd like to unmute, maybe you can talk specifically to this, because I know that incoming inspection seems to be one of the largest areas that we have been seeing that our people are engaging with the Visual Inspect.
Yeah, sure. Well, this, as you mentioned, this causes a lot of pain, because normally there's no time for a real measurement of these parts. They come in and stand somewhere on the shop floor, and when the time comes to assemble these parts, and you start assembling it, and then after 2 days assembling, you recognize there are hole missing or some feature is wrong, and you have to deassemble and bring it to the milling machine again. And so this causes really a lot of time and money. And with just an inspection, you I can tell you, you only need, let's say, 5 to 10 minutes to make a quick check, at least if every hole is there and every face is milled. And then you are sure that you can give this to production.
Yeah, so obviously this is a very powerful capability, and actually I would say again, this is one of the largest applications that we're seeing utilized at this point right now, where they're using it for an incoming inspection tool. We put automotive up there because that's really one of our primary markets, although this is very scalable across all manufacturing. Thank you, Oliver. So let's talk about another application where we actually have some production phase control. And so after each step in the fabrication or the production, we actually need to check if manufacturing the item actually corresponds to the original. And as Oliver had mentioned, are the holes there? Are they there but they're in the wrong position? Are they the wrong orientation, etc.? So this is an absence presence check. And basically a go no go gate to verify that you've actually done what you're supposed to do. I had the example about a shadow box where 30 weldment parts are put on a subassembly and everything's cleared, and the operator, he or she, thinks, okay, I've done my job. However, if we can do a very quick pre-check before they even put those parts on, number one, we know that the parts are basically good parts. Okay, that's the first part, and then we can actually do a quick in process to check, go no go relative. Did they place everything, and did they place it in the right location? So this is very simple, very efficient, and very reliable. And the one thing I want to impart too is that this is a very easy system to utilize. You don't need to be a subject matter expert. You don't need to be extremely well trained as a technician. You can be an operator, and he or she can be trained very quickly, and they can actually implement very quickly. So not only is it a really powerful solution, but it's a very easy to use solution. And I think that's very important, right? Sometimes really powerful technology is not so easy to use. So one of the things that we're always driven for at FARO is don't just develop great solutions that can solve a need or a problem. Make sure that they're very easy to use for operators. Here we have a specific application for aerospace, where we actually have some fuselages, and we can't give you any details, but basically they're very complex, and you've got stringers and ribs and all kinds of other items that need to be there, and they actually do the an overlay, and they utilize the augmented reality capability to check the as-built against the model. Let's talk about inventory control. So you receive from a supplier, you get parts in bulk, and Visual Inspect allows you to identify the parts and basically correctly put them into inventory, and also match any type of part list or invoice that might be associated with that. So you might have quite a few parts, and you might have quite a few parts that are very similar. So one of the mandates for manufacturing, right, is not just to increase rate or throughput, obviously reduce scrap and rework, but also to mitigate or minimize all of the paperwork, the blueprints, the documentation. And the documentation can't go away because of ISO and other types of processes that we want to adhere to. But we want to ensure that we can minimize all of these different documents and where we store them and how we store them, how we communicate them, and basically, again, streamline the ability of operators to do their job. So that's another thing that the Visual Inspect really lets you do. So I can tell you that you can have very large assembly drawings. You can have very large amount of information, and compress that, and basically have that basically mobile and or stored, or both, and take that right down to the shop floor or to the production area. And again, this is time savings. This is reduction of errors. This is compressing and streamlining your process. So we see this as another very very valuable benefit relative to visual inspection. And here's some different areas where you would actually use that. So ID of a part by the part number, localization of a part in the actual assembly. You can have a visualization or a view of the part, 2D or 3D. Let's talk about assembly guidance or guidelines. Different parts are produced in different facilities, and basically Visual Inspect supports the creation of tools, documents basically, and videos, and they can explain the assembly process. This is, again, is a very powerful mobile. So I would like to say too that in some of our customers, many of our customers, they have a combination. They have very powerful mobile CAD viewing capability with Visual Inspect. And then they also have areas that they use the augmented reality. And sometimes they use one and sometimes they use the other, but it gives you more tools in the box, if you will. And most of our customers are blended in the sense that they use a hybrid. Some areas they use both the CAD viewing capability, mobile CAD viewing, and they use the ability of the augmented reality. And in other areas, they might only use augmented reality for a quick check. Other areas that might only use the CAD viewer. So you have that ability, and it can also be used so that new employees can basically be brought up to the same level relative to the process and the procedures and the steps that they have to follow as basically a tenured or long-term employee. Here you can see something, and I know that this was originally in German, and Oliver was kind enough to translate for me. But basically, is you have something where you show the assembly and the actual, and then you show some augmented reality, some overlay of items. You might show different areas, and then you also have notes or annotations. So you basically don't want to torque this or turn this too strongly. So let's talk about some of the ROI benefits and the return on investment and commercial side of things. So we really stress the mobility and the mobile aspect. So basically you have this availability of very heavy, complex 3D, CAD or CAD data, and the ability to use augmented reality in all of your working environments. So whether you're walking around a manufacturing line in automotive, whether you have an offline inspection station, whether you're building a ship and you're inside a bulkhead, whether you're actually in an aircraft and you don't have a lot of room within the fuselage. So this allows you to be mobile and portable and to walk around with very heavy, large data sets. Basically, with the ability, we have a proprietary capability to compress very large data sets into a certain format that actually allows us to basically put that onto the CAD, on the CAD model, onto the iPad and to make it mobile. Extremely cost effective, basically using the iPad and the app and our FARO software. It's a very cost effective alternative to more expensive augmented reality and inspection systems. Time savings, I think that's very evident. We can push the checks and controls further out into our process. We can make them mobile and walk around. We can even push those out when we visit suppliers and vendors. It's extremely easy to use, so you don't have to be a technical expert. After minimal training, operators are able to utilize this, so you can basically expand your quality department, if you will, by pushing this out further. Your quality capability and your check go, no go. We obviously reducing scrap or rework not only plays to increasing your rate or throughput, but it actually it really can save you a lot of money relative to time, material, and labor. And we can take this data that we can capture real time and or do it as an overlay after the fact and make notes and annotations. We can share that in the plant and we can share that across the organization. So it's a very powerful, again, CAD viewer, documentation system, and augmented reality check. Let's talk about some of the key features. So the iPad, first and foremost, is our facilitator, if you will, and it's very operator friendly and intuitive. Touch functionalities, very simple app gestures. You can zoom, you can translate, you can rotate 3D data. You can use that complex data to show different sections, and you can have 2D, 3D views. We have the quick check comparison capability, right? So you can actually interact with the as-built and the model, and you can look at different, the measurements, just so we're clear, this is not currently a measurement solution. It's actually, you can look at measurements and different information out of the CAD model and look at that real time on the CAD viewer or the iPad. We can look at different step-by-step sectioning relative to sub-assemblies in different parts, different areas. We can look at 2D or 3D views. I think the documentation capability is very powerful and will be one of the large growing areas that will end up really implementing the Visual Inspect. Customers will really engage and grasp this, that you can take this real-time data, compare it to your CAD model in real time, and then take a picture and put notes and annotations, and again, share that not only within your plant, but across your facility and also your organization. We output to standard protocols in the Microsoft format, and you can use that for reporting and for follow-up. We have the ability to do QR scans, so that if you have parts, you don't need a physical traveler or paperwork. Remember, we talked about how organizations are looking to go full digital or paperless, and so you could actually use that to scan a code and know what the parts or the assemblies or both are, and makes it very easy for operators, especially if you have multiple build sets, or certainly hundreds of different parts in a build set. Let's talk about some of the key features, not just capabilities. So we talked about the augmented reality, and this is, so we have the ability to have an extremely powerful mobile CAD viewer as a base level. And then with software from FARO, from Visual Inspect, we also have the ability to augment or overlay 3D virtual data on the as-built. And so this is augmented reality feature. We also use the tablet for this. We have a stand for it. Most customers seem to like to move around with it. Basically, again, you can compare the CAD model, the CAD model, with the actual as-built. So this is nice too, because you might have very difficult or tight locations. Like I said, bulkheads, fuselages, interiors of frames of cars, and you can actually move within those areas, and then utilize the augmented reality function and or the CAD viewing function, or both. Time independent overlay. Basically, you could be out at a supplier and then go back, and on the flight back or in your hotel room, make additional notes to what you did originally, basically annotations, notes, and basically have a full report that you generate relative to what you were seeing from an inspection standpoint. So I think this is, again, is very, very powerful because it's mobile. So very simply, we have a universal CAD translator, and I'm sure a lot of you are asking, so how do you take this very heavy data? So this universal CAD translator is a very powerful compression tool, and we can take pretty much almost virtually all of the different formats that we would see, certainly in the factory metrology business unit, and even to some extent in the the BIM sim market. There's 2 or 3 or 4 different formats specific to that market that we can also handle. So whether somebody has, SolidWorks or Pro E or IGES, Inventor, CATIA, whatever it might be, we can take that into our universal translator. Now the translator would be located in your tooling CAD area, and then once you do your compression and you've got that compressed file, then you actually can load that in various ways onto your iPad. And then those methods could include through a server, use a flash drive, Apple iTunes, you could email it, you could have AirDrop. So there's multiple ways FARO is very savvy. We don't want to just have solutions, right? We want to make them extremely easy for operators to utilize and not to have to be specially trained. And we also want to make our solutions be universal and as open format as possible. And we want to make it as easy as possible to utilize and push the information that we either generate or that we measure, and to push that out to be able to utilize that in a very powerful and strong way. These are very quickly downloaded once you've done the compression. We use markers, or you could actually not use markers. And I'll actually I'll open it up. Maybe you could speak to that a little bit, Oliver, because I know that's probably going to be one of the questions that folks ask. We utilize markers for alignment, but we can also not utilize markers. So if you could go on mute and maybe speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. There are two possibilities of doing augmented reality. We have to synchronize the real world with the CAD data. This can be done with a special marker set we created. So it's very easy to attach these markers because they have special adapters in the real world. For example, stick it in holes, or we have magnetic marker or electrostatic markers for aluminum. And you just place it in the real world, and we need 4 of them. And you have an auditoring system on the iPad where you can do the same in your virtual model. So you don't have to prepare any data for special augmented reality use. You can just use your normal CAD model and make virtual markers there on the same places. And then you hit the camera on your object, and as soon as at least 4 markers appear in the view of the camera, we can overlay it. You can use up to 16 markers to give you more freedom in moving around, but the camera always have to have 4 markers inside. That is real time. And then we have the possibility of using pre-taken pictures. These pictures can be done on the fly with an iPad camera, or we have even the opportunity to use higher resoluted external cameras. And then with the use of these pictures, you have the advantage that when you place this picture into your model, it's stored there for further reuse. You can overlay or reference this picture by giving detailed pixel points. So you say this pixel point belongs to this CAD point, or if you have markers in your picture, you are able to use the markers there. But either the way you do it, the picture and the situation of your augmentation is stored inside the model tree. So when you give the model away or send it to your colleague around the world, he can just examine the same situation wherever he is. And it has also another great advantage. You can just work with pre-taken pictures from a certified picture source. So you don't even have to be there. If you have a certified picture source, like a special calibrated camera or another iPad or iPhone or something like this, the pictures can be sent to you, and you can, as I call it, you can make an incoming inspection all over the world. So you can say your suppliers, please don't ship this. You have to get aware of these bugs, and then you can do the shipping processes after we certified everything is okay.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, is that every site could be, standardized where you can look at the assemblies real time utilizing a technology like this, and ensure that Brazil is the same as Germany, is the same as Japan, is the same as in the US. So I think that's whether from suppliers and or from plant to plant. So that's very powerful. Very good point, Oliver. Thank you. So I wanted to show just quickly, most folks are visuals. So I wanted to just show, so what would a system consist of? So in and of itself, we have the iPad is the primary facilitator, and there would be software. And there's 2 distinct softwares. There's the CAD viewing capability software. So where you actually have the ability to take the compressed CAD data and actually put it onto the iPad and use it as a mobile viewer. Very powerful. And then the most powerful was the CAD viewing capability, but also the augmented reality capability. So those are 2 very distinct software packages. And then we have that extremely powerful universal CAD translator that I showed just a few slides ago. And that software would actually be physically loaded onto your CAD tooling workstation, engineering workstation, and it would reside there. And that's where you would do your conversions. And then again, you would have them either in a central database or some type of server system, and/or you could just walk it directly from that system. You could have multiple ways to get it onto the iPad. And once the iPad or iPads are loaded, then operators can take them out and push them out to process areas, manufacturing, shop floor areas. And then we have a kit that we've put together, so it's self-contained. And this has basically a tripod stand, various sizes of markers and adapters. And the kit itself does not come with the iPad, but it has an area to store the iPad. So basically, this is a fully self-contained, high-impact plastic storm case with protective foam. So you could use this if you wanted to travel to different sites or to suppliers or vendors, and you could certainly keep it within your plant and keep it self-contained as a kit. And so I just thought it would be important to kind of show that. Our job today is not to sell to you, right? It's really to impart the capabilities and some of the key benefits of the Visual Inspect. So I wanted to just give you an overview. I'd like to do a quick recap, and I wanted to keep at least 15 minutes open for question and answer. I think that's very important, and there's a lot of smart folks out there that probably have some very good questions. So let's just recap our value proposition. So Visual Inspect basically allows you to improve your process controls and reduce costs by reducing, mitigating, or eliminating scrap and rework. We align to best practices across your facility, your organization, with increased oversight and control capability. We increase your engineering visibility to potential manufacturing impacts or changes, ECOs, issues within your manufacturing process that you'd like to document immediately and push out to either your plant or your entire organization globally. We allow you to capture data and turn it into actionable intelligence, or basically something that you can make a change very quickly with, because you've got good information, real-time information. So we identify these changes earlier in the production process with timely feedback from your manufacturing group. We can share these digitally across both your plant and your organization very quickly. We can also store all of these images and this data and the information that we actually collect. And basically, we can implement or enforce or improve preventive and defective control capability in the manufacturing process and push that up further upstream, if you will. We allow you to streamline or run your business better. And basically, the better you run your business, the better customer that you'll be able to be to your or supplier or provider to your customers, and certainly that'll translate to increased sales for Visual Inspect product platform and for the FARO team. So with that, I'd like to probably open this up to questions and answers. And I think I'm going to have to open my screen, so you'll see my screen, I think. And if there's any questions in the chat function, or Gareth, if you have some that you've already collected, you'd like to come in. And Oliver, I'd like to ask you if you could open up your mic too, and we could go ahead and collaboratively answer any questions that we might get.
Thank you, John. Yes, that's right. I do have some questions. We'll start taking a look now. The first one is regarding return on investment. And what would you say are the application areas where Visual Inspect allows or enables fast return on investment?
So I've got some ideas, but Oliver, if you want to jump in as probably the one that's utilized Visual Inspect the most, if you'd like to jump in on that.
Yeah, I can have at least two concrete examples. Read a return of invest by providing errors. It's really hard to figure out. But as John mentioned before, we all live in the real world, and we know when tools or parts come in, there are bugs and errors and problems. And when you avoid to get further in your process with these bugs, and you can detect it direct from the beginning, you save an amazing amount of money from time and machine time. For example, you bring something to the measurement machine and you find out there are 3 holes missing. And then you have to do the whole work again. You have to deassemble it, drill the holes, bring it again to the measurement machine and adjust this. And this is hours of work. But where it's a concrete example is for many processes, nearly all the production in Europe and all over the world is done in 3D. So the design and the programming and all is done in 3D. And then there's a need of making 2D drawings out of this just for controlling processes, because the quality inspectors doesn't have CAD viewers or the laptops, or they cannot use the laptops in their tough environment or anything else. And so engineers spend really hours and hours just for creating 2D drawings. And this is a point we have with a big customer we just reduces. So they're taking the 3D model, translate it, and the quality inspectors goes with the iPad to their work and reporting bugs and features. And so you can just I can come from tool making. For a tool, you can really save 200 to 400 hours just for creating 2D drawings. And then you have easily a return of invest in weeks or months.
And I know you can't share some specific names because we deal obviously for confidentiality, but we've had some customers who've seen some very short business cases, return on investment situations in the automotive and some other major manufacturing areas. So yeah, I can certainly see where you could just the fact of removing the prints and the 2D drawings and all the documentation that's required, especially if you have, maybe you have a lot of different variations in what you build, and or you have a lot of items that you build in general. So either one of those, there's going to be a lot of blueprints, there's going to be a lot of 2D drawings, there's going to be a lot of documentation that's required. So I can see just from the fact of, reducing that footprint of all that documentation and having it be, digitally saved and or shared, and certainly and mobile enough that it can be utilized in any of your production work cell areas. And again, it's very easy to use. So I think that's important. You don't need subject matter experts. You don't need highly trained technicians. With some training, your operators, he or she will be able to go ahead and do this. So yeah, it's very, very good point. Maybe the next question, Gareth?
Something?
Yes, please do.
When you have shared the picture with the fuselage inspection, this process takes normally about 6 hours by 2D drawings. So the inspectors needs really 6 hours for controlling is every bracket present in this fuselage. And we break this process down to half an hour. So you can imagine how often this is done and how quick you have a return of invest.
Yeah, that's a great real-time example, Oliver. That's very good. Thank you. Gareth, maybe the next question.
Thank you, gentlemen. Yeah, we have another question. How does Visual Inspect enable the capture of data and then transferring that into actionable intelligence?
Well, during our presentation, I think we talked about how we can we can identify changes or deviations much quicker earlier in the production process, and so that allows manufacturing to give very quick feedback to whatever other processes, either upstream or certainly downstream, or from just from a direct feedback standpoint. And then we can actually have the ability to very quickly and digitally share those across not only our local manufacturing, but perhaps our global manufacturing. And also this could be whether it's in suppliers or vendors, or it's truly in the production process. And that allows us to basically maintain our quality and our process controls. And I think that the fact that we're going back to the fact that everything will be digital, and we're really getting away from paper. And so it's a lot easier to sort things, to find things, to share things, to communicate things, and it's mobile, right? And think about a process engineer having to go down on the floor, and it's kind of hard to wheel around your your big desktop PC, and or even if you have a bullpen down in the manufacturing area, you still aren't in the manufacturing area, and you still don't have the ability to literally take pictures live, make notes and annotations live, and or overlay later, and then share that immediately in your organization. So I think it's the ability of the iPad as a facilitator, with the camera, the ability to have an intuitive, interactive viewing capability and operator input relative to these annotations and texts. So I would say that's the benefit, and how you really capture the data and share it, and why it's actionable, because it's immediate.
It's also very precise. When you look at these processes today, normal way is you make your inspection, you're taking a digital camera, you're making pictures, then you prepare a PowerPoint presentation, and then as the engineer gets back the PowerPoint presentation, he sees a picture of somewhere on the part, and there's a sign, please reduce radius here. I know that it's this presentations. And then you don't know why. And here you get the concrete 3D model back with an annotation, with an anchor point, which directly is first connected to the part, with the part number and everything else in the report, and you can directly locate the error.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. The next question in regard to integration with existing IT infrastructures. Does Visual Inspect require a sort of integration process, or can it run as a standalone solution?
Yeah, that's a good question. So basically, Visual Inspect is set up to be an out-of-the-box turnkey solution, and we've sold it that way, and we will continue to sell it that way. And then, so basically, it doesn't require, special integration, if you will. I will say though, and I'll defer to Oliver because he's part of our solutions group, and basically, I know they have gone into some specific customers. We can't really tell you, but we can say that they had very specific process environment, and they wanted to integrate into their IT. So you don't need to. It's out of the box turnkey solution. However, some of these folks did want some level of customization, and I know that Oliver and the team from the 3D services and machine vision aspect of our business have actually facilitated that. And Oliver, maybe you can speak to that as well.
Yeah, I can only say what you have said before, that you don't need to integrate anything besides the CAT translator. You need it on your computer, but we can do a very smart and seamless integration, as we did for some customer. This starts with special reports they want to have, so with inspector and additional data and points, checkpoints that they have to fill out and anything else, till a complete integration in company's task system. So as soon as the inspector finds out that there's something missing or that there's an error in production, he can make a documentation and directly give who is responsible, till when does this person have to clear the situation and all this. And after we return the iPad to the docking station, this data goes directly to a database and will transfer it into the task system of the companies. So we can make a very seamless integration in any IT infrastructure. But for working out of the box, it isn't needed.
Okay, thanks. We have a couple of questions about specific areas of the manufacturing process and Visual Inspect's benefits there, perhaps. With regard to, for example, sheet metal and in the press shop, are you able to inspect the surface of panels and identify dents, scratches, surface variations? Is that a function of the system?
to me?
I would say that we are Visual Inspect. So remember in the beginning, I said we're not, as FARO is a metrology company, and we also have manufacturing solutions, that we're not a measurement tool per se, right? This is a Visual Inspect. So it's not a measurement. So if you can visually ascertain that something's either, the offset from the as-built to the CAD model, but it's not a metrology or measurement tool per se. But I'll let Oliver jump in on that.
Yeah, right now it's not. You can clearly say that. Right at the state of the art today, it's not a measurement tool, but we have certain projects running to give them a slight metrology capability.
So I would say, to answer that distinctly, if those surface variations are visually attainable or can be discerned, and we certainly can take a picture and make an annotation. And so if it's cosmetic and or if it might be functional, but we can visually see it with the iPad and the camera and our human eye, then we certainly could call that out. If there's, I think, very distinct aspects where this would come into play are drilled holes. I'll use that as an example. Are they there? Absence, presence. Are they in the wrong location? We see that a lot. Are there cutouts? And those cutouts are either absent, present, or they're in the wrong location. And Visual Inspect, the AR feature, will very quickly let you see that and document that. So, so hopefully that answered the question. And certainly feel free to engage FARO folks after the fact to do what I'd call a deep dive, and certainly look to the very specifics of your application. And let's see if we can help you with some of these challenges. Go ahead, Gareth.
And another questioner asks about tool and die making. Is that an area where the system could have benefits?
Sure. You can use it in, especially because we come from tool making, you can use it in nearly every area of tool making, starting from incoming inspection of parts, standard parts from suppliers like base plates or anything else, to control it for the assembly, to controlling after you have done the milling in the machine, if the milling is done right and the CAM programmer doesn't forget to program a feature. So if you see there's a pocket or a hole or something missing what hasn't been programmed for the machine, you can just inspect it inside the machine without removing it, and then you drill the hole or mill the pocket, and you don't have the whole time to arrange anything again on the machine. And then you can give advantage or assembly support for the people who do the assembly, so there's no need to run to a terminal in the shop floor to get the information which plate or which phenol is to place where on the thing. You just have your iPad with you, it's mobile, you can have your information directly on your workspace, and as soon as an error occurs, you can directly document it. And so the whole process chain is supported in tool making with the Visual Inspect tool.
Okay, thanks. I think we have time for just a couple more questions, and I think this one perhaps relates to the answer you've just given. But one of our listeners talks about currently spending a lot of time creating 2D drawings to show assembly stages at a prototype stage of a vehicle. And they wonder if your software could perhaps replace this and enable the workshop to see how prototype parts are assembled together. Is that a function you can foresee?
Yes, in the kind of making the augmented reality overlay. We have in the augmented reality modus, we have all abilities what the plain CAD viewer also have. means, for example, you can show and hide parts. So if you want to have to assemble one part in the whole assembly, you just hide everything else and only show the assembled part. And then you can making the overlay, and you see, as we see in the presentation with the door where the bolts and everything are on. So you can see where do I have to assembly what by overlaying this. And you can see, is this assembled right, what I've done, or do I have to change the size or the position anywhere? So that's a very good support for this.
Okay, and I think the final question now, we're just coming up to the hour. How could clients and customers follow up with you, having seen what they've seen today about Visual Inspect?
Well, FARO is a global company, and so we would, more than all of our regions, this product suite has been, the solution has been formally launched, so they can reach out to their local FARO contacts, sales engineers or sales folks. I'm not on the sales side of things. I'm more on the product management support side of things. But the standard conduits for FARO, we're on the web. You can see here on the screen. I've got Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Again, you can reach out to your local sales and support folks. And certainly we would love to engage with you. And I think the power of the Visual Inspect, like I said, we may not truly know where some of the applications are right now. We think we know, and we're pretty smart folks, but this has been demand driven, right? So it's come from customers, but that's where solutions are going to come. It's really the imagination and the capacity of our customers, right? So some of the questions that just came in, you might have some very good ideas of how this might be implemented and how this can streamline your process. So reach out to FARO folks locally and engage with them and have them understand your challenges and your issues, and see if we can use all of our product portfolio for support, whether it be metrology solutions or certainly Visual Inspect. I see Visual Inspect as an adjunct to all of our other solutions as well. So we're local, we're global, and we're local. Feel free to reach out to us in any of these ways, and we'll support you.
Okay, we'll draw it to a close there, but thanks to all of you for your questions. Any that we didn't have a chance to answer here will be sent on to John to follow up. So we'd like to say thank you to John for a very informative webinar. As always, the webinar will be uploaded into the AMS archives and accessible in future for your colleagues who've been unable to join us for the live presentation. You can access this and all of our previous webinars via the webinar tab at the Automotive Manufacturing Solutions homepage. We'd like to get your feedback on this webinar, so there is a short survey coming up. Please take the time to complete this, as we very much appreciate your input. Thanks again for taking part with us today, and I hope you join us again for our next webinar.